So we've been around the block for 5 years or more. We've probably got fairly habituated, and we have our go-to exercises. They work. But once you've done them 50 times, I know there are techniques to make them, it seems like the first time, but we're not always using those. When you have that translation to the virtual, there's no place to hide. You have got to deliver. Also, by the way, do you find that everyone is giving you feedback about everything all the time? There is no place to hide. Are you getting that?
You're getting it more directly by how participants are responding.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah, and but I think that and there I've been working with great gratitude and pleasure with of course Oscar van Weerdenburg, whom you know, and Yvonne van der Pol, who you also,
Yes. Yes.
not to mention also many other people with whom we work frequently. And these are people you can ask for feedback, and they will give it to you in a way that is helpful. And, and you keep each other just alive through that.
Yes, yes, and we need more guidance, don't we? We need more guidance. I remember, I'm sort of reinforcing a point we've already talked about. We are the professor, but when you're using Slido for the first time, or Kahoot, or Mural, or Mural, or whatever it is, we become children, and that face. There's an adult man who is panicking here. And then there's this independence. Look at me, I know my subjects too. Please, producer, save me. I don't know what I'm doing. And then managing the relationship as you go back in to these young people who are digital natives who can get on with it. It's a challenge. It's a
Yeah,
challenge.
yeah. Well, some other things like what we also discussed in our IRC online community, and I can go into that in a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
And, with Zoom, we have all these little squares on our screen, and no one is bigger than the others, and don't even know where people are on the other person's screens. It's really separate realities. And so if you come from a high power distance culture, or one where you really feel that your status should be respected at all
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
and that people will listen to you and will wait till they talk until you have spoken, suddenly it's almost like a grinder. It's like a Zoom grinder, and everything you've built up, everything you learn to rely on in terms of aura and status, it goes through this little square. So, and I know that in Japan that has caused a lot of dissatisfaction, because those with less status suddenly got at the same level of those with high status.
Didn't we used to call that democracy?
Which country are you talking about?
No, exactly. It's a hypothetical thing. It's never really been tried. I love it. So yes, in the academic world and the rest of it, there are the egomaniacs. So there's
Also,
a bit of axing going on there. That's
yeah, yeah,
that's fascinating. And then, I
yeah.
mean, what I'm finding is a lot of performers. You won't believe this, but I would classify myself as a confused introvert. So it's interesting where the light shines, and maybe there's not a new audience, but a new cabal of performers as well.
Yeah. And by the way, this whole, learning about what it happens and what it brings in the Japanese culture,
Yeah,
that was shared with us by Rika Asaoka.
yeah,
She's our IRC associate in Australia.
yeah.
So just to mention her name, because that's really thanks to her that we
Shout
were,
out to Rika. Shout
yeah.
out to Rika.
Rika.
You understand this concept of the virtual. I can do a shout out to someone in Australia, and it works.
Yes,
Fantastic.
yes.
No, we talked. I think we talked before the show about like SIETAR Switzerland, who did this congress. The
Hmm.
physical one 2 years before, which I was lucky enough to sort of host, was about 80 people, and then it was 350 people from Cameroon to Mongolia, literally, and plenty in America, getting up at ungodly hours. It was extraordinary. It was extraordinary. So there's the
That-
reach. I've got business now. In the physical world, it would never, ever come to me because I happen to be in the UK, which is sort of in between a few continents. It's coming to me and I'm doing it. So I'm getting, and not necessarily more business, I'm getting more business, but that's a different thing. I'm getting different opportunities come to me. So that's very exciting.
Yes, yes.
Any other positives that you can think of our crazy virtual postage stamp picture gallery world.
Yes, yes. We have many dear colleagues who've invested into the certificate for
Yeah.
the Intercultural Readiness Check. And we always used to meet in Amsterdam once a year. And of course, at some point, only the Europeans could still come, or then only the Dutch. It was kind of like limited, and because everything was so far away. And then with Corona and the lockdown, we said, hey, kind of like everyone just feels dislocated and just it's so uncertain what we're
Yeah.
experiencing right now. So since then we've been calling people together, inviting them to our online meetups, and hosted jointly by, again, Rika Asaoka and myself, and Oscar is also joining when he can. And each time 20, 25, 30 licensees
Nice. Nice.
from Australia, South Africa, they join, and then they meet each other, and they are, hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, and it's also, you really experience this sense of wanting to be together,
Lovely.
and that was just so great. So we're starting with looking into feedback. How do we give feedback? How does that our ideas about how we should give feedback differ from culture to culture? How do we need to take this into account when I give feedback to someone from a very different culture? So we're starting there,
Well,
and
you can maybe add in my thing. I know there's the cultural differences of giving and receiving, or in my country, avoiding and avoiding. But I will say, I do feel just on a technical point, you have a 2 day training is now 4 modules, which are 3 weeks
yes,
apart, and you get
yes,
feedback and feedback and feedback and feedback. It's fairly endlessly. It is, number stuff. It's pretty scary, but it's in a way it keeps you on your game. It keeps you on your
yeah,
game.
yeah. So what are some of the highlights also for you? I mean, you have been so active with all the tools, communication tools, even long before Corona and long before Zoom. So what are some additional things we haven't discussed yet? So things where you felt, oh, I love this. This is the benefit of the virtual learning world.
I did it. In terms of that, what have I done? I'm just putting stuff out there on social media will give you an interaction, and then that is a connection, and then you interview them. So suddenly there's a way of sort of rehydrating the dried seed to produce the flower. That is extraordinary. So ridiculously unparalleled opportunity to meet fascinating people. And I mean, I quite like. We're doing a graduate program at the moment, and I've got the gallery on the screen. And you've got the naughty children at the back. I like your democracy. Everyone's on the same sort of level. I'm using less slides, which has to be good. And then I'm really sitting and I'm learning to react to their physical movement and say, Andrew, you moved. What are you feeling right now? It's a different way. I'm not distracted. I'm not sort of working physically. I'm more relaxed because I've got, maybe, I don't know, a second computer with my PowerPoint on it over there. I can actually focus more on maybe the emotional and make a very different connection. And I think there's this democracy of connection, which is quite interesting. Or I can just, go down a list of people instead of, picking our favourites in the classroom. You could do some clever stuff. So it literally does distribute the microphone in a more even way. So there's lots of different things, but I mean you can't beat. I mean I'm getting old now. I'm getting old. It's mainly arthritis. The early start, or just you finish a fantastic day with great people, and you've got 8 hours travel to get home, and you maybe have got something the next morning, and it's just that was brutal, and there's just a respite from that. I'm a trainer. I lead an utterly privileged life. It used to be I would go to 12 countries a year. Shame on me, carbon nasty. And it would be the weekend romantic destination first choice places of Florence and Venice and Malta and Berlin and Paris and Montpellier, Annecy and Amsterdam and bloody bloody blah. Uh, But now, wow, you're thinking, I know people there. So I was pinging to someone in one of those exotic locations earlier. And so you can get some sort of access, so you can get that feeling. But, we've got so much more energy and time. I've got so much more time, which is bizarre. A day's course is now a half day's course, and without the day's travel. So, yeah, I'm pretty good. What about you? Should we finish on one positive?
I have this one book, The Village Effect, by
Ah,
Susan Pinker,
okay.
and a couple of years ago, and it's all about the benefits of face-to-face, long before Corona. And one of the things that I remembered is that apparently when we touch each other, like with a handshake or just putting the hand on the shoulder, that releases hormones
Oxytocin.
that makes us trust the other person
Yes.
more easily. So that's something to think about then. And I must say that, and that's why I've so much been enjoying having this session with you, is what I miss is kind of like the uncomplicated laughter, the
Yeah.
in the sense of that comes from enjoying that we're together.
Yeah. Lovely. Lovely.
The relaxing, not having to keep the distance of 1.5 meters,
Yeah.
not having
Yeah. Yeah.
masks, just being relaxed, and just this feeling kind of like having your social batteries recharged.
Yes. Yes.
Forget how good that feels.
I think it's also it's more deliberate, isn't it? So you and I have had to go through your very many firewalls of protective staff. They who are tough. Is your call really necessary, Matthew? Yes, it is. And getting there, we are electing to be here. You're electing to be here. I like George Simon's idea. Our participants are prisoners, vacationers, or volunteers. I think there's more volunteerism now, which is exciting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Ursula, I know that there's a strict cut-off, that your assistants are going to come in and switch your machine off any minute now. So before they do that, which is going to be embarrassing to me as the semi-host, I'm going to thank you. Ursula, it's so good to see you. Thanks for spending the time, for being with us. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Fantastic, and thanks for inviting me.
No worries. People out there, you know what to do. Be naughty, peer-to-peer, but only pick slightly dull webinars. Good content, but dull presentation. We'll see you next time. See ya.